I'll make this pretty easy. I'm going to stand here. I'll hold the microphone. You just talk to me.
Okay.
And you don't have to look at the camera. Don't worry about any of that. If you're somebody talks with their hands or whatever, that doesn't bother me. You just be yourself.
I'll make the conversation between you and me, not the camera.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. For starters, I just need to make sure my microphone is working. I'll hold it there. Can you just say your name and spell it, and I make sure everything is looking good here, okay?
Mike Reimers, Michael-Reimers.
All right. Mike or Michael, I guess.
Michael. Yeah, they call me either way. I go by either way, but
Okay.
I went by Michael for doing this project. So.
Okay, very good, very good. For starters, maybe tell a little people about your background, your career. Sounds like some military service, your family, and maybe what's kind of transpired that you might want to seek public office here.
Background is I've worked farming and been in the farming operations and had partnership in the farming, sold seed corn, been in the military for 26 and a half years, traveled all over the world. I was in the American Legion. I started at post level and worked my way on up to department commander in the state. So that got me a little bit involved with politics, if that's what you say. They say there's no politics involved, but politics are all there. We lobbied Congress and everything else while I was in that. So that helped me kind of get a little prepared for this. When I was going to college, I was a student senator way back when, so it wasn't that it's a strange aspect to me. So I did a lot of volunteer work, scouts and some other stuff. So my parents, I grew up around Danbrook, Carroll area, and my parents got divorced, but I had a great dad and a great stepdad, and my mom was just tremendous with us, and she made sure that we got everything we needed. So, so,
yeah. Well, you mentioned it, but going to the legislature, something that's an interest, it sounds like, for you then. And what is it about that particular body, sitting in the legislature, being one of 49, that kind of appeals to you, that you feel like you could be somebody who could contribute there?
well, what it come down to, I felt that we see a lot of upper class. I'm a middle class person and a common person, so I felt that would give a little more aspect to that aspect of the people, of the communities, and out in the country. But I travel the state of Nebraska for my work, and I see what the rural communities are like and everything else, so that makes a difference too. So I really want to help not just the people in the state, but the state of Nebraska as well.
What do you see as being some of the most pressing issues that the legislature is going to have to be dealing with?
Right now, there's the voter ID is one of the big keys. Second Amendment, that one's top on the priority. It's what's going to happen there is we just got to stay on top of it and make sure that nobody takes our rights away. If we lose one right, we're going to take another right away from us. So,
Do you think somebody's trying to take your Second Amendment rights from you?
well, it seems like they keep trying to plug away at it. It's hard to say whether they're taking them away or trying to take them away. They keep talking about gun control, and you never know which direction that's going. So.
Outside of those, what do you see as being some of the other big issues for the state?
One of the ones right now with the schools right now is the critical race theory and the sex education. That's one of the top ones on the list. That not just only that legislature, everybody is hammering on that one. So it's one of them deals where you gotta watch it. You hope that the school boards and that take care of it, but if they don't, the legislature is going to have to make sure that our kids are protected. We as people, we need to make sure our kids are protected and that we see their future long past our age.
When I talk to local schools, they tell me critical race theory doesn't really play in day to day with what they're doing. Yeah, are they wrong, or is it something you're more trying to keep from getting into our schools, or what do you think there?
No, I don't think they're probably wrong here in the middle of Nebraska, but there's a threat there. So that's what we got to keep on top of it to make sure that that threat don't get any stronger, and that it don't happen in our rural communities right here in middle Nebraska.
Just in terms of the legislature has to set a budget every 2 years and has to live within our means as a state, and we generally do pretty good with that. We usually are in a pretty good fiscal position, but then comes the tax issue, and do we have a fair tax system right now? Are we too reliant maybe on property tax? Do you have any thoughts on what we need to be doing as a state?
The property tax wise, that's another big issue right now. It's one of them weird ones. I've studied it very well, and there's no set down, we can do away with this or do away with that. I think we're going to end up doing a compromise, but the same aspect as I talk to some people, I say, we do away with property tax, and what are we going to do with the people that are buying property up from out of state? I says that's the thing I have. They buy up our ground, and then they don't pay nothing in the state. They just take our rent and things like that. So it's one of them type deals. And taxing wise, they talk about an epic tax. I think that wouldn't be all bad if we took away all the loopholes and everything else. There's a lot of loopholes and a lot of stuff, and that's the same way with our income tax and stuff like that. So I think some of it is going to start with just doing away with some of the loopholes in the tax system. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about epic tax, so you beat me to it. So we've covered that one now. You look at the big expenditures of this state, a lot of money goes into education, and that includes K-12, but then also the university system, a big chunk of money. And then also a lot of those social services programs, health and human services. Between the education and the health and human services, that's a pretty big chunk of the budget right in there.
Yeah, that's a issue that I know that we're going to have to start looking at. School, I don't like that we end up having to take away from education, but sometimes we have to make sure that we don't keep spending and spending. Sometimes it's just like anything. What do we spend on and what don't we spend on? And sometimes we have to say, okay, this is enough here at this point. We need to spend over here, or we need to compromise at times, that's why one of the deals I say taxes is bad for everybody, but for us to have good roads and some of the stuff that we have, we got to have some taxes. We can't go away with them all, so.
Well, exactly, especially in rural America and rural Nebraska, you got to have good roads. We rely on being able to get that grain truck into the co-op and deliver cattle and all those things. But in terms of agriculture, then let's shift gears to that. Obviously, when I look at Hall, Hamilton, let's see, where am I forgetting? It gets up to Nance and then Merritt County as well, where you're at. Agriculture is the driving force in that area. What do you see as policies or areas that we need to do to continue to promote agriculture in that area?
Well, some of the policies, I don't know if you really want to push so much policies as we need to make sure that the policies would be try to keep some of this so where we can keep the young farmers coming back into the group, Right now, we have no way, the cost has got so far out of line that we can't get these young farmers back into the group. They get lucky if their dad's farming or something like that, or their uncle or something like that. But we have to do something major to get this changed so that we can get some of them young guys back in. We always wonder what kind of business are we going to want to be in, and some of us would want to be in farming, but we can't afford it, So it's one of them deals.
Related to that are always water issues. When you talk about policy, that's usually where the rubber meets the road, is on water policy. And The governor's involved now in a lot of different things on water. Do you have any particular things on water that you think the legislature needs to be looking at?
Well, we need to watch it. I'm not saying that we can't do something to help out our neighboring states, but we have to make sure that we take care of our state first. And we have to realize that we have a lot of agricultural, whether it's farming or livestock, that needs to take good water, and we got to make sure that water is taken care of right, so.
Well, very good. And then when I talk to people around the area, yet a couple of other issues always come up. One of those being our unemployment rate is really, really low around here. Every employer I talk to, whether it's in Central City or Aurora or Fullerton or around the Grand Island area, they tell me it is a struggle to hire people right now. Do you have any thoughts on what the state can be doing to try to deal with we've got really low unemployment in this area?
Yeah, the unemployment, thank the Lord it's low, but the bad deal is it's hard to find good help, and I'm not saying that there's not good help out there, but sometimes it's one of them deals where, just like right now, everybody's price, their wages have all went up, but some of them haven't, and that's the kicker right there. And we gotta, in the state of Nebraska, we gotta start thinking about where our wage scale needs to be so that we can keep some of these people here instead of letting them go someplace else.
The other issue I talk to folks in your district about all the time is housing and what people consider affordable housing. I look at some of the prices of what's considered affordable and I go, gosh, if I was just starting out, I don't know how I could afford that so-called affordable place and just the lack of housing. Do you have any thoughts on anything we can be doing at the state level to try to help encourage housing, especially in some of the rural communities?
Well, on the housing, we got to work that issue, but one of our big thing is just what you said, affordable housing. We have to stop some of this corporate buyout. They're taking away a lot of low-income housing, so where people could start, and get into something cheap and reasonable, and that still be all right, and they could get into that. But we're letting a lot of corporations buy a lot of our. It's not just farm ground, and it's not just ground that we're putting businesses on. It's in our residential areas, whether it has to do with, rentals or one way or other, whether it's apartments or whether it's houses. It gets to be a big issue, and that's what my concern is right now, is that we have to work on this corporate, not to necessarily stop them all, but we have to make sure that we can still leave enough housing out there for people to get a first chance at stuff.
Very good. I'm just checking my camera, make sure we're still good here. If the voters were to choose to send you to Lincoln, you're one of 49 people. You got to work with other people. We're a nonpartisan unicameral legislature. We're a little different setup than all the other states. Committees are pretty important. We do a lot of work in the committee structure and all of that. And then term limits have been with us for a number of years now. So it used to be that guys had a chance maybe to kind of, maybe for a year or two get their feet on the ground and figure out. But these days it seems like you got to hit the ground running if you go to Lincoln. Have you given any thought just to, how it might be serving in the body in Lincoln and what you might do to kind of get ready for all that?
Well, I think I got lucky in my life. Like I said, I've worked with several organizations, and they work with volunteers. And sometimes you have to learn how to work with volunteers, because it's not just like working with somebody you work with all day long. So that's kind of what I've looked at a little bit. I says, well, I had to work with volunteers that sometimes they didn't think eye to eye, so I had to work around that, or stuff. So I think there's ways of working with all them people, but it's one of them type deals. The big thing is we have to look out for greater Nebraska, and it's not a party deal. That's why it says nonpartisan. When we go to Lincoln, it's for Lincoln. And the people of Nebraska, not something else.
Hang on just a second. I got to check my camera here.
Being for the greater Nebraska, helping the community.
Let me ask you about that. I mean, I think they say something like half the state's population lives east of 27th Street in Lincoln or something like that. And you look at the the makeup of the body in Lincoln and how many of those senators come from Lincoln and Omaha. You know, do the senators and greater Nebraska kind of have to work together on some of these issues to, maybe in this state it's not always Republican or Democrat, sometimes it's rural and urban and looking out for the rural folks and some of that kind of thing?
Well, it comes down to where, you know, there's issues in the big cities, and sometimes we could do away with some of them issues by letting some of that industry come out here in rural Nebraska. We have plenty of places. Sydney, you know, with Cabela's happened, and there's plenty of buildings and stuff out there that we could make that real thriving community in a hurry. I mean, Hastings, Grand Island, Kearney area are real industrial orientated and everything else. We need to try to see if we can move some of that stuff out of Omaha and help them out with some of their issues that they think they have. Let's try to see if we can move that stuff out this direction, and so you don't you know, they have the development area, but they're getting the same aspect where it's getting short. You know, they're starting to cut into a lot of area, and I mean, one way or the other, you're going to cut into farm ground, wherever it's going to be. So, but now I think we need to work together and make sure that the greater Nebraska, rural communities, I mean, we're talking about even Omaha, you know, they got issues just like rural communities do, and not trying to make a difference for somebody else, but we all have to work together to help everybody, so.
Folks have already started voting, and election day is coming quick. You know, somebody is maybe sitting down at the kitchen table filling out that ballot or going to the polls, and they're trying to decide who should I fill in the little circle on the ballot for. Well, Mr. Reimers, why should somebody cast a vote for you?
Well, I feel I've got more than enough ambition and everything else. I've lived in the community around Aurora and Central City, supported the communities for 30 plus years. Actually, I grew up for a while in Aurora before when I was younger, and so between the Grand Island area, I lived just north of here for a while, just over by Northwest in the Grand Island area. So I mean, I've supported the communities for a long time, and that's the reason what I think is you need somebody that knows the community and supports the community. So.
Well, very good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I know some Reimers